Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's video where I talk about 5 more ways that you might be wasting money without even knowing. Now I've done a previous video which covers an original 5 things which might be costing you money without you even knowing. Please check that out if you haven't already. But this video is going to go into further detail on 5 different things which might be costing you money without you even being aware of it. So the first one of these is not cancelling unnecessary subscriptions. Now these subscriptions are typically things that are sold on technology and gadgets, for example TVs, laptops and phones, by either the manufacturer or the retailer when you buy the product. Now the reason that these are unnecessary is that, for example, you might have home or contents insurance that already covers the devices, and so you're just paying additional extra for coverage that doesn't really add much. So my own personal experience, I went to PC World and I bought a TV, and at the time they offered me an opt-in plan which was £7 a month for like repair or like replacement on my TV. I thought this was a pretty good deal, so I opted in. However, thinking back on it, that wasn't really necessary because I already had contents insurance which insured my TV up to the value of the TV and gave me a voucher to buy a new one, so there was no real need for me to buy a like coverage plan. What that ended up costing me was £7 a month for 2 years, which is £168. Now that's quite a lot over the space of 2 years, but these plans can cost significantly more. So one key example of this that has been in the news over the past couple years is the Geek Squad scandal with Carphone Warehouse. So this is where Carphone Warehouse were essentially forced to pay a £29 million fine for the fact that they missold coverage when people were buying phones and SIM cards from their stores. Now my dad actually was one of the people who fell victim to this, and he ended up paying £7 a month for over 11 years. That's well over £900. So these unnecessary subscriptions or unnecessary contents insurance that come with an individual item that might already be covered elsewhere are things that you really need to be careful of, and you don't want to fall into the trap of taking them at the time because the salesperson does a good job of selling them. So the second thing that might be costing you money is not switching your Wi-Fi, your bills and your energy provider every year to get the best sign-up quote. Now this is something that is similar to what I covered in my last video with insurance, which is that sign-up benefits often are significantly greater than the renewal benefits that you're offered. But actually with bills, energy and Wi-Fi it's even easier because there are now a few companies around which will either automatically switch for you every year or that take 2 or 3 minutes to find you an alternative price with different providers. So these are companies, for example, like Uswitch or Look After My Bills, and what they can do is they can save you a lot of money. So recently I switched over from EDF Energy to Bulb with Uswitch and ended up saving myself £180 a year on my bills. Now this is something that I think is really important for everyone to do because those sign-up offers are what really reduce the price. Because essentially all these providers are competing for your custom, and every single time that they get a new customer, that's obviously a new revenue stream for them. Whereas if you stay loyal to a company, the other companies are obviously losing out on that stream. So they want to try and do as much as they can to get new people to sign on. So that's something I'd recommend, is going out and trying to get as many different quotes from different providers, or at least using a switching tool to make it easier. Now of course, you don't need to use a switching tool, and there are some ways that you can actually reduce your price without even changing provider. So what you can do is you can call up your provider when it comes close to your renewal date and simply state to them that you don't think that your renewal quote or your renewal estimate is fair price compared to the rest of the market, and that you're thinking of changing to a new provider. And what they'll actually do typically is they will then provide to you a new quote, or they'll try to beat your renewal quote. And if they can, that can often save you money as well. So that's one thing worth considering, is you don't even need to change provider and have to create new accounts. Your current provider may be able to beat your renewal quote, all you have to do is ask. So the next thing that might be costing you quite a lot of money without you even realising is buying name brand food or name brand clothing. Now this is something that's quite often covered, and people do tend to be quite hot on this nowadays, but I still find that a lot of people wear clothes to impress others and not necessarily for themselves. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out and buy expensive or nice clothes if that's what you really want to do, but doing that when you can't afford it, when it's just to impress somebody else, isn't worth it. Paying £50 for a t-shirt just because it has a little horse and jockey right there just isn't worth it. You're better off spending £10 or £15 on a good quality but not branded t-shirt that can do the same job. And this is similar with food as well. So as much as it's great to go to Waitrose or M&S Food and spend a lot of money on buying high quality, high expensive items, actually the alternatives at cheaper shops like Aldi and Lidl are never really that much lower quality, and in some cases are actually better. So one thing I'd say is that you can do as much of your shop as you can at Lidl and Aldi to maximise your money, but then if there are specific things that either you prefer the quality of or that are only done at those name brand stores, then you can always still go to those name brand stores. It only adds a little bit more effort because you have to do 2 different shops in one day, for example, but that's really not the end of the world if it can save you between £10 and £20 a week on your shop. The next thing that can have a massive impact on your weekly shop is alcohol, cigarettes and takeaway food. Now, fortunately for me, I don't drink very much and I've never really smoked, so these aren't things that I've incurred massive costs with, but I can see the costs adding up for people who do use those things more often. So alcohol, for example, can almost double the price of your weekly shop. At the minute, I spend about £20 to £25 a week on my shop to get food. But if I was to add on top of that, let's say a crate of beer and either a bottle of vodka or maybe a nice bottle of wine every week, then that could easily add another £20 to £25. And these are expenses that you don't really need to spend. It's the same thing with cigarettes. Cigarettes are now, thankfully, a lot more frowned upon and they're not so common to be used. But they're still incredibly expensive luxuries to be wasting your money on. Again, on top of that, you also have the price of takeaways. So the thing I find with takeaways, they're always sold as this convenience of food, you order your food online, it gets delivered to your door. But by the time you've ordered and you've had your food delivered, it's maybe 35, 40 minutes, maybe even longer, depending on how quick the delivery service is. But in that time, you probably could have cooked up a meal similar to your takeaway that was either a lot healthier or a lot tastier. So as much as the convenience is fantastic, you pay quite a lot for that convenience. You can make food that is very tasty for well under £1 a portion, whereas if you're going to takeaway, you're oftentimes paying significantly more than that, well above the £5 mark, just for a meal. Now of course, one thing with that is that you have to know how to cook, and it can be quite difficult, especially if you don't have the best resources for cooking. But actually, one thing I think is really interesting is looking at how things are marketed to save you money. So for example, say you wanted to get into cooking and you needed some nice tasty recipes but you're on quite a tight budget. I'd recommend looking online at student cookbooks or at student recipes as opposed to regular recipes, because they're often fewer items and much cheaper. So that's something that can really reduce the cost of each meal that you make, while ensuring that the meals are still high quality and flavourful. So the fifth and final thing that might be costing you a lot of money is online shopping or retail therapy. So this is the concept that when you're feeling a bit down, you might pop on Amazon or you might go down to the high street and you might spend a bit of money buying things that you don't necessarily need to make yourself feel better. Now, although this does have a short-term benefit, and it does in fact make you feel better in the short term, studies have proven this, in the long term there's no real gain, and eventually people do actually feel quite guilty about the things they've bought, often leading to returning of items. Now, studies have shown that 68% of women and 38% of men have actually taken part in retail therapy at least one point in their life, and that's quite a significant number of people who go out and spend money they don't really need to be spending to try and make themselves feel better. So one thing that I think is quite important with this is not only to limit the amount that you spend on online shopping, but actually to try and find more healthy and reasonable ways of making yourself happy when you're feeling down. Whether that's going out and exercising or taking a walk, or trying to do something that doesn't involve spending money and could be detrimental to your financial situation. The average Amazon Prime member spends on average £1,000 per year on different shopping items on Amazon. Now this is an astronomical sum of money. That's the kind of money that you could use to really change your life and get a new side hustle started. And if you could invest that money in the correct way, you could really see some strong returns on that. So that's something I think is really worth considering, is reducing the amount that you shop online, but also trying to find better ways and more healthy ways to get over things like retail therapy and down periods in your life. Of course, the issue of retail therapy and all this online shopping is driven not only by fast fashion, but also by social media. So the issue with social media in this aspect is that it always promotes you to buy the latest thing, and especially now with things like Instagram and Facebook, allowing you to tag shops or allowing you to tag websites from which you can buy things. It becomes a lot easier for people to market the new thing to have, the new clothing or the new jewellery or this new item, which can force people to feel like they need to retail shop, just in order to meet up to the expectations of the people around them or their circle of friends. And it's important to ask yourself whether you're buying things online to impress yourself or to impress others. If it's to impress others, that's fine so long as you are 100% certain that that is what you want to be doing. Whereas if it's something for yourself, for your own personal gain that you think is necessary, then it's a more valid purchase and it's something that might actually be worth spending your money on. So I'd say to be careful with your online shopping and not overly online shop. Just because there is an endless high street on the web that is easily accessible on your phone or on your laptop doesn't mean that you have to use it. So those are 5 key things that I really think can impact your life. If you can reduce your spending in those areas, they can save you a lot of money and you can reinvest that money in other areas and it will really benefit you. So if you do any of these things or you think of any others, let me know down in the description. I can always make a part 3 to this. And of course, thank you very much for watching. Please hit the like button if you did like it, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll see you in the next video.